So hi everybody, welcome along to another author event with Braille House and Bookshop 507. Today we're joined by author Penny Tangey.
Hello, thanks. Lovely to be here.
Nice, thank you for joining us. So Penny, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm an author. I write books for young people. I've had 4 books published with University of Queensland Press, and my latest one is called As Fast as I Can. And I'm also studying information management. I'd like to be a librarian one day.
Oh, nice. Perhaps you could come and work at the Braille House Library one day.
Well, that would be very exciting.
So you're also a researcher for TV quiz shows. How did this come about, and what's the strangest quiz question you've ever had?
So my friend was working at the show, at a show, and they needed more people. So I got involved. The first one I did was the chase, and then from there they kind of just, next time someone's starting a quiz show, they just mention names and people have done the work before, and so it just sort of like I've worked on 3 different quiz shows now. And
You're the go-to.
probably one of
You're the go-to.
I work on a show called Hard Quiz on the ABC, and so everyone has a specialty topic, which is quite interesting. And so one time I was doing, there was a Weird Al Yankovic. That was their specialty topic. And I was watching a video, and the question was something like, oh, at the end of the video, what happens to Weird Al Yankovic's head? And the answer was supposed to be that it exploded. And so I was watching the video and I had to check, yes, his head explodes. And then I thought, no, and I should keep watching just in case, to the very end, in case something else happens to his head.
Yeah.
And so I watched all the way to the end, but no, it was okay. His head just exploded and then nothing else happened.
Yeah. But you have to you have to watch it through to the end.
You have to check, because there's always possibility that there's more than one right answer in any question. That's the main thing that we're checking for. We want.
So interesting. What an interesting thing. And also, you very have wide talents. You're also the Victorian winner of Triple J's Raw Comedy.
Oh, yes. That was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that something you've continued, or?
I did it basically when I was at uni. I used to do a fair bit of stand-up. But after I left uni and got a bit older, I sort of didn't really want to go out at night anymore.
Right.
And I started writing books, and that sort of was a better lifestyle, really. So I sort of swapped.
Very well. Just on that, what inspired you to write books?
I think I always wanted to be an author. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lot of different things when I was a kid, but one of them was an author. And so I think I think when I moved overseas and I had a bit of time and I didn't have a job, and I just had a bit of time, and so I thought I'll try and write a book. And so that's when I wrote my first book. And then since then I've just kept going.
Yeah, right. And you just mentioned there that you lived overseas. You've lived in Washington, DC. How's it different there to here?
Well, DC's a great city, and everyone there is very busy and important. So everyone's got these jobs in these interesting places, and I didn't have a job. So there's not that many, compared to maybe a city like Melbourne, there's not that many people sort of maybe being a bit more creative, no, there are creative people, but there's not as much kind of everyone's working very hard, has to be very busy, has to be very important, and so I sometimes felt a bit out of place sitting in cafes when I had lots of time and everyone else was having a meeting or working on their laptop. And
right, and indeed
I just was going to all the museums and galleries, and again, there's a lot of tourists there as well, but most people just come for a few days or a week or something, whereas I was there for 6 months.
Yeah, and you have that beautiful backdrop there with you today. So is there much that in DC or close by?
No.
Oh, so
it's
right.
This backdrop that I've got today, that's my hometown of Newstead, in central Victoria.
Beautiful. And so you had success straight away with your first book, Loving Richard Feynman. Can you tell us a bit about what changed for you after that book? Because it was pretty instant success. Or was it?
Well, it got shortlisted for the Children's Book Council of Australia's award, and that for me, I was so surprised. I had no idea that the publisher had even entered it in the award, and so when it got shortlisted for that, and I remember that award from when I was a kid, like all the books getting the stickers and everyone reading the shortlisted books and guessing which one would win. And so that was just so exciting for me, and probably what that meant was that it was easier for me to get the next book published and the next book published, because just because you've had one book published doesn't mean that a publisher is going to publish the next one. I've never had a book deal where they were like, "Oh, we're going to publish your next 3 books." I've always had to write the next one and then hope that they'll like it and publish it again. So it definitely helped with that, and it definitely helped me just sort of keep going to go, oh, okay, this is going okay, and I'll write another one.
Yeah, and why young adult as a genre?
Oh, well, I didn't really intend to write young adult. My first book, I just thought I was writing a book about a teenager that was for adults. But actually, then I showed it to a publisher and they're like, no, this book is for teenagers. And which I think is quite common. I think a lot of people do that. And then so I just sort of stay with that. But my most recent 2 books have actually been middle grade. So they've been for sort of upper primary school. And that's actually a category that I really feel very comfortable with, because when I was in primary school, I read a lot of those books. I read a lot of middle grade fiction. Whereas when I was in high school, I was a bit of a snob and I started reading adult books and I wouldn't read young adult. So I love young adult fiction now, but I have a lot of memories of reading middle grade when I was a kid and how important those books were to me. So it feels really special to be able to write them for kids now.
And your next book, Clara in Washington, it's about a girl who just finished year 12, moves to Washington, D.C., doesn't have anything to do with, and then she starts out hanging with a group of anarchists. This seems closely aligned to your story. Does it have any similarities, yes, or if not, how does it differ?
Yes. And I am very autobiographical, like the things I often write about things that I've done, or at least that's a sort of starting point. But I didn't think it would be very good to write a book about someone going to Washington, D.C. and writing a book, because that's very dull. And I know people have written books about people writing books, and I'm sure it can be done really well, but I don't think I could. So I just thought I quite like the contrast, because you see D.C. is like a sort of centre of government and a centre of, centralised authority. And so I thought it was interesting to have someone exploring a very different idea of anarchism in that place.
And then we got to Stay Well Soon, which is quite different from the others and covers some serious topics. Can you tell us a little bit more about that book?
But that book's about a girl who really, really, really wants a horse, and she loves horses. She just wants a horse, and then her brother gets sick, and she pretty much just still wants a horse. So and that comes out of when I was a kid. I really, really thought I loved horses, even though I had never really met one. And I really wanted a pony, and it actually turns out that I don't like horses. I'm scared of horses. And then, so I was sort of writing about that, and then the book has like this other kind of more serious side to it as well, which, yeah.
And then we get to As Fast as I Can, which is your latest book. It's been described as a funny, heartfelt novel about resilience, acceptance, and dreaming big. So it's about a 10-year-old girl with an Olympic dream. Can you tell us about this one and how that came about?
So it's once again, it's quite autobiographical. When I was in primary school, we had the Barcelona Olympics, which me and all my friends watched, and it was a great Olympics. Barcelona is a fabulous city to have the Olympics in. It felt very exciting, and they had that great song by Andrew Lloyd Webber, Amigos para Siempre. A woman with really big hair sang it. It was very inspirational. And Kieran Perkins won the 1500 meters, got a gold medal. My friends and I watched this, and we were like, we're going to the Olympics. We're going to be Olympic athletes. we had no idea what sport we were going to compete in. We just think it's not important, it doesn't matter. We're going to get there. And so one by one, what's actually happened, and I just assumed that one day, like, I'd try a sport and I'd be great at it. But instead, what's happened is one by one, I've got too old for all the sport. And so now, like, I'm pretty much left with shooting. Like, that's my only hope. It's very sad. The Tokyo Olympics should be on now, but they're not, obviously.
Well, you've still got time. You've got another year now.
Yeah, I've got another 4 years, which is great for me, because I can do more training. And so that was kind of the idea for the start. That's what the main character in this book like. She absolutely wants to go to the Olympics, and then some things happen that make it difficult for her. And the book is actually quite anachronistic. It's basically set now and earlier in 2020, and they're all talking about the Tokyo Olympics happening, and they're all going to school like everything's normal. And actually, we know that that's not what happened. And I think it kind of actually sort of fits with the theme of the book, which is a lot about how things happen sometimes and we can't control them, and how you deal with that when you can't do the things that you really want to do. So,
And Vivian's the main character. Is there much of her personality in yourself? Did you try many sports?
Well, I definitely did the school cross countries and stuff like that. She is a very focused person. So she spends 4 years just trying to go to the Olympics. Whereas I, as a kid, I wanted to go to the Olympics, but I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a police rescue worker, and I wanted to be a lawyer, and all so I spread myself a lot more thinly. Whereas this character is one thing that she wants to do.
Nice one. And can you tell us a little about the best piece of advice you've been given as an author?
A friend of mine once said that when you're writing, this is sort of like more of a writing, how to keep writing sort of thing. But a friend of mine said you should not write until you run out of ideas. So if you sit down to write and it's going really well, don't just keep writing for hours and hours until you're like, I don't know what to say now. You should stop when you've just had a good idea, because then it'll be easier to come back to next time. Because and that way. So that's what I try and do. Probably means that I just stop too soon. Really. I'm like, okay, better not to write more. Yeah, 15 minutes, that's done.
Nice. And can you tell us about the process? So what comes first? Is it the idea and the character, or is it just does the storyline come to you, or a mixture?
Probably I usually have kind of one central idea. So whether it's about the girl who loves horses but hasn't met one, or the girl who wants to go to the Olympics but doesn't know what sport, or and then I sort of have an idea of how I want the character to change, but I don't know what's going to happen in between very much. And sometimes a lot of people plan out their whole book before they write it, but I never know what's going to happen.
Surprise yourself.
And I don't really know what most and I don't know what most of the characters are like. So if there's a teacher, I won't know what kind of teacher it is until I start writing it, until they start talking, until stuff starts happening.
Very interesting. And do you have any advice that you could give people listening about writing or getting a book published?
I think the most important thing is to write it, obviously.
Yeah.
You have to write it. And I found that because when I wrote my first book, I had that 6 months where I was able to concentrate on it, but I've never had that since. I've always been working and interspersing it with other things. So I just do little bits here and there. And if you do a little bit, then it all adds up.
Yep.
And having said that, though, it's so difficult. I know people have so many different things going on in their lives and pressures. And at the moment, I think a lot of people feel, I've got more time at home now, I'm going to write my novel. It's actually very difficult to write
sit and write.
Global events going on and things are really stressful. So, try to write, but don't be too hard on yourself. That's basically
fair, and that's good advice generally. And What sort of books do you like to read?
Well, I really like to read middle grade books. So books for upper primary school, I still really like reading them. I'm actually in a book club where that's all they read. It's all adults, but we read middle grade books. It's very good because if you haven't read the book and it's coming up, like you can probably, even if you start the day before, you can probably finish it. So that works well for me as well.
That's a good book club.
Yeah.
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 And so what's next? Do you have any new books coming out soon, or are you writing anything at the moment?
I've written a book that's very different. It's for adults, and it's about a woman who's on maternity leave and she starts solving crimes. Well, she's like a mystery book. But I don't know how that's going to go, and I don't know if anyone will publish it. So yeah, we'll see.
Nice one. So are you able to read us a little bit of one of your books?
Oh, if you'd like me to, that would be very
that'd be fantastic.
I've got As Fast as I Can here, and I thought I might just read from the start.
Sure.
From the very first chapter. 1, training. I am going to the Olympics, not just as a spectator, because anyone can do that. I will be a competitor. I haven't found out which sport I'm good at yet. Luckily, school sports day is in a few days. I can try different athletics events and find my talent. Right now I'm training. I'm standing next to the hills hoist in our backyard about to do my first run-up for the long jump. We don't have a regulation long jump pit, so I'm using the old sand pit. No one plays in it anymore, and Mum hasn't got around to turning it into a vegetable garden yet. It took me ages to sift out the dead leaves and sticks from the sand so I won't get stabbed when I land. I take a deep breath and mentally prepare myself. I imagine the whole world watching on television. I hear the crowd cheering, see the flash of the cameras, Mum and Dad waving an Australian flag from their front row seats. I imagine the TV commentator saying, "This is it for Vivian Hasler now. She needs a big jump to stay in the competition." I run as fast as I can. At the edge of the sandpit, I jump, throwing my legs forward like I've seen in the videos. I land on my bum in the sand. I think it was a legal jump, but I don't know how far I jump because I don't have a tape measure. Next, I'll try the triple jump. Hop, skip, jump, hop, skip, jump, I tell myself. I set off for another good run up, but unfortunately, I do the jump first instead of the skip and hop. I also pause for a long time and wobble between each bit, which is not how you're supposed to do
it. I think there's a bit of Vivian and myself as well. Excellent.
It's very confusing, the triple jump.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And where can people purchase your books?
So you can get them at most bookshops. I always like independent small bookshops like Readings in Melbourne or the Little Book Room in Melbourne, but obviously every city has different ones. And you can also buy them through the publisher, University of Queensland Press, their website.
Excellent. And do you have any final messages for the people watching us today?
Oh, just stay safe, everyone. Wash your hands.
Yeah, very
Keep
good.
your distance. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you.
I'm in Melbourne, so yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Penny Tangey, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure, and we wish you all the best in the future.
Oh, thank you very much. You asked very, very good questions.
Thank you. All right, have a good day. Bye.
Okay, bye.